How's it going, you guys? So this shoe was released in Asia, but it hasn't been released in the US yet. The release date is unknown, but it's sounding like it's gonna be September or October. But I managed to get my hands on a pair. And right off the bat, it kinda looks like a mix between the Vaporfly 4% Flyknit, the Alphafly, with a little bit of Peg 37/Zoomfly thrown in there. After a few runs, I'm ready to give you my first impressions of the Nike Tempo Next% Flyknit. So the upper, as the name implies, is Flyknit. This isn't the same as the Vaporfly 4% Flyknit or Zoomfly Flyknit though. This is almost like a mix between the Atom Knit and Flyknit. It's more breathable and a bit less stretchy. There are 3 different kinds of cushioning in this midsole. It has React foam in the heel, and the rest of the midsole is ZoomX, except for the Zoom Air pods in the forefoot. There's also a full-length nylon plate to tie it all together. The outsole has a lot of rubber in the forefoot, and some thick strips in the heel to make this shoe more durable for everyday training. So now let's talk about the fit of this shoe. Similar to the Alphafly, it'll take you a few times of squeezing your foot in at first to get it to slide on smoothly after that, but once you're in, you'll get a nice fit around the arch, and then it opens up a little around the toe box, being a little roomier than the Vaporfly 4% Flyknit. I found it to fit true to size. It seemed to be a little bit longer than the Vaporfly Next%, but I found it to be spot on to the fit of the Alphafly. So now let's talk about the ride of this shoe. Like I mentioned, I'm only a few runs into this guy, not a ton of miles on it. The first run was honestly a little disappointing. It was really stiff in the heel with React, similar to the problem I had with the Peg 37, but once you got up on your toes with the ZoomX and the Air pods, it was quite bouncy. I noticed it did feel better when I was picking up the pace and more up on my toes compared to when I was going a little bit slower and started to heel strike a little more. So after a couple runs, it did seem to soften up a little bit more, which gives me hope, and I'm starting to enjoy it more and more each run. One thing I did quickly find out though is that you have to wear higher socks with the shoe because there's a little point here at the seam that seems to rub up and cause blisters on my Achilles. Alright, so there's some quick first impressions, but I'm sure everybody wants to know how it compares to other shoes. So let's start by comparing it to the Alphafly, since Nike is marketing this as the training companion to the Alphafly. The Atom Knit on the Alphafly is lighter and more breathable, but the Flyknit on the Tempo Next% is more supportive. The Alphafly is definitely much softer and bouncier, thanks to the extra ZoomX in the forefoot. That really seems to make a difference in softening up the ride up front, and then the thick slab of ZoomX in the heel makes that really bouncy as well. They both have similar outsole patterns with waves in the forefoot, but the Tempo Next% has thick rubber, which will withstand a lot more mileage than the Alphafly. Alright, so now how does it stack up next to the Vaporfly Next%? The Vaporfly Next% has a more traditional fly mesh upper, which I think I like a bit better than the Flyknit on the Tempo Next% personally. The Vaporfly Next% has 100% ZoomX midsole with a carbon plate, which makes it softer overall, but the skinny pointed heel makes it much less stable. Since the Tempo Next% is designed for more everyday race training, it has more durable rubber than what you'll find on the Vaporfly Next%. Overall, the Vaporfly Next% is definitely a better race shoe. Alright, now let's put Flyknit against Flyknit with the Tempo Next% Flyknit versus Vaporfly 4% Flyknit. So both the Vaporfly 4% Flyknit and the Tempo Next% Flyknit obviously have Flyknit uppers, but the Flyknit on the Tempo Next% is the next gen. It's more reinforced around the midfoot, a bit less stretchy, and is more breathable. It seems like it'd do better at keeping water out than the old Flyknit. The Vaporfly 4% Flyknit has a slightly shorter stack height than the Tempo Next%, but it still uses 100% ZoomX and a carbon plate. Again, it's softer in the heel, but also less stable. The forefoot, on the other hand, is bouncier on the Tempo Next% due to the Air Zoom units. The Vaporfly 4% Flyknit has thin patches of rubber that are way less durable than the rubber found on the Tempo Next%, and I found that the Vaporfly 4% Flyknit definitely feels faster since it's lighter and has that carbon plate, which makes it firmer and you get more of that rockered feel. So, for a shoe that was originally called the Pegasus Turbo Next Percent Flyknit, it doesn't really resemble the Pegasus Turbo in ride or looks. Honestly, I think the closest thing I've felt to the Pegasus Turbo is the Saucony Endorphin Speed, but I'm really hoping that the Vomero 15 kind of fills in for the Pegasus Turbo, since that will be using a mixture of ZoomX and React and an Air Zoom unit, but I guess we'll have to wait and see for that. That being said, the Tempo Next Percent does feel a lot more like a Zoomfly replacement, and when you compare it to the Zoomfly, this one is softer and bouncier and less rigid. So the Endorphin Speed kind of spoiled me. I was a really big fan of the PEBA based midsole with a nylon plate. The Tempo Next Percent does have PEBA based foam and a nylon plate as well, but they definitely have different rides. The Endorphin Speed has a more supportive everyday trainer style upper, while the Tempo Next Percent has the lighter weight Flyknit upper. Both have the PEBA based midsole foams with plastic plates, and both are meant for training runs and tempo runs. The Endorphin Speed is way bouncier in the heel since it is Power Run PB and not React like the Tempo Next Percent. But the Zoom AirPods in the forefoot of the Tempo Next Percent make it bouncier in the forefoot. So I think, like most people, I was super hyped for this shoe, and honestly, after my first run, I was a little disappointed. But then again, I said the same thing about the Pegasus 37, and after breaking that in, I really enjoyed the ride of that shoe. So like I mentioned earlier, after my second run, this shoe seemed to soften up a bit, and the ride was a lot more enjoyable. So I'm hoping that with each run, that trend continues and it keeps getting softer and bouncier and smoother and more enjoyable. But I do have to say, it is kind of a strange shoe. It's not the lightest weight. My men's size 12, it weighs 10.3 ounces, and the Alphafly weighs 9.1 ounces. So there's a 1.7 ounce difference between this and the Alphafly. I think this would be around 9 ounces in a men's size 9, just for that baseline. But it's definitely not lightweight like the Vaporfly Next Percent, and is closer to the Pegasus 37 in the weight category. So sometimes the shoe can feel kind of clunky, yet still speedy. It's kind of a weird paradigm. I think I might be too light to get the full effect out of the Air Zoom units, but again, we'll see. These are just my first impressions, and I'm really excited to put more miles in this shoe. So I'll be sure to give you my final verdict in the full review. So in the meantime, subscribe so you don't miss my new videos on the Alphafly or any of the other shoes I am reviewing. And as always, keep on running.